NewsX World. The White House says President Trump is frustrated with India's trade stance and believes a 25% tariff will help fix the situation. Economic advisor Kevin Hassett says India now may reconsider its practices. He confirmed more details on an additional penalty will be released soon by Trump and Trade Representative Greer. Despite rising tensions, Hassett remains optimistic. He says a trade deal with India would be a game changer for the global economy and hopes New Delhi will open up its markets to US goods. The comments come just days after Trump's tariff announcement sent shockwaves through bilateral trade circles. We're now joined by John Rossomando. He is the president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. John, thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you here on the program. Donald Trump has obviously expressed frustration with India's trade stance, citing the 25% tariff as a solution. How effective do you believe this tariff will be in addressing U.S. concerns over India's trade practices?
Well, this is aimed at getting India to reduce its tariffs that have created a $45 billion trade deficit for the U.S. And President Trump's entire goal with these tariffs is to remove obstacles for the sale of American goods in foreign markets. I think it remains to be seen whether India will reduce its tariffs or will have some sort of deal come out of this.
Yes, indeed, John. Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council, has mentioned that India may reconsider its practices in light of the tariff. What specific trade practices is the US hoping India will revise in response to this?
Well, the United States is hoping that India will reduce the tariffs it places on American goods, so that we have, from an American perspective, a more level playing field, and that President Trump says he views Narendra Modi and India as a friend and as an ally, but he's using this as leverage.
Yes, indeed. And given the scope of this tariff, how do you think that India will react? Donald Trump did refer to India as still a friend, but then slammed its trade practices. Could we see major changes in India's trade policy, or might the country push back with a possible retaliatory tariff or even diplomatically?
Well, I think it remains to be seen, but I think that India is not going to take this lightly. I think that India, at least in the short term, will probably dig in its heels because it views President Trump's tariff policy as an insult.
Yeah, indeed. Hassett also remains optimistic about a potential trade deal with the United States and India. How realistic, after this situation, do you think that the two countries can come together and a trade deal is made, given the current tensions?
Well, I think that President Trump loves using chaos to get the other side in the deal-making process to make concessions. So, he did this as a businessman, and he's doing that in his trade efforts. So, I'm hopeful that the U.S. and India can reach an agreement.
The US government and the Indian government have two men at the center of their decision-making policy. Do you think this is going to put a permanent stain on that once close relationship?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, President Trump is hoping that his personal relationship with Narendra Modi will overcome any of the difficulties between the U.S. and India, and that we can end up with a trade deal that is equitable and fair for both parties.
Yes, indeed. And in light of this announcement, how do you anticipate the ramifications in the United States? Textiles, pharmaceuticals, information technology, these are all leading exports that India provide to the United States. How do you see these industries reacting to these tariffs?
Well, I think that there will be an initial shock. However, I think President Trump wants to see more of these products made at home here in the U.S. One of the things is the cost of production is so high in the U.S., which is why you've had offshoring over the past 40 some years to India and other locations. So President Trump is engaging in a kind of protectionism of American industries.
Yes, John Rossomando, please stay with us. We're joined by another guest here for this discussion, Sharad Kohli, who is an economist, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Sharad, thank you for joining us on the program. This announcement from Donald Trump on Truth Social came in an unprecedented time. Obviously, he's insulted India's trade practices while also calling India a friend. What do you think the ramifications of Donald Trump's 25% tariff on New Delhi is going to cause for Indian trade as a whole?
Well, I really don't think, Thomas, this is going to cause a storm here because, first of all, President Trump is known for making announcements and backtracking. He keeps talking of newer things the other day, afternoon, evening. He's also known for making new announcements on dates, for that matter. So I don't think these tariffs are sustainable, considering that India is exporting more than $85 billion of total merchandise, including the IT industry. The total bilateral trade between the two countries is $130 billion. So I really don't think America can afford to have more expensive pharmaceuticals, more expensive machinery, electrical and mechanical, more expensive leatherware, footwear. Either President Trump is able to set up factories overnight and start manufacturing all this stuff by itself. Otherwise, it cannot do that. And I think when President Trump said that we haven't been able to do a lot of business with India, that's not true. As I said, $130 billion is not a very small amount if it's not a very big amount as well. And the other thing is, putting conditions that because India is dealing with Russia, we are buying defense equipment from Russia, we are buying energy from Russia. I think each country has got sovereign right to buy whatever they want to from another country. If you are getting Russian oil, which is cheaper than the world market, if you're getting credit from Iran, we've got all the right in the world. No third country has got the right to interfere in what we deal with the second country. So that's my second take. And besides that, I also see a bit of contradiction here. Well, from January to July, to the best of my information, America by itself has imported about $2 billion worth of goods from Russia. This includes, for example, one of these items is a fertilizer, which probably America could not find anywhere else, so it imported. So this is a marriage of convenience. When it wants, it imports. When it wants, it calls the other countries, you are trying to promote murder in Ukraine and so forth. And NATO, to which US is a big ally, the largest ally of NATO. The NATO countries themselves have been buying from Russia ever since the war broke out in Ukraine. So I really don't think, Thomas, these tariffs are sustainable. He said at the end of his Truth Social message that he's trying to make America great again. But in the process, he's going to make America more expensive. America is already under a debt of $36 trillion, a $29 trillion economy being under debt of $36 trillion. It is going to cause a big economic mess in America. It's going to fuel inflation. So as I said, instead of making America great again, he'll make America expensive again. America barely came out of inflation. The growth rate is hardly 1 to 2%, which is pathetic. And, tonight, coincidentally, there is a meeting of the Fed where Fed is going to take decision on the rate cuts in America. And, he's never been very happy with Jerome Powell not cutting the rates for the simple reason, Mr. Powell is right, because the fear of inflation is looming large over US at this point when inflation is on your head, you cannot afford to cut the rates. So tonight, I think the Fed is going to meet and a call will be taken on rate cuts. With these tariffs coming in, I don't think there is a room for rate cuts. I mean, if it is done, it will be done under political pressure. But I think Fed is an independent institution and should not be coming under political pressure. Any interference of the political establishment in the Fed is not correct. So, it can affect the dollar, it can affect dollar investments, it can affect American borrowings, it can affect overall condition of the economy. So I really don't think these tariffs are sustainable, Thomas. I'm sure that President Trump, after a rethought, or a second thought, he will have to take it back sooner than later, is what I feel.
Sharad, do you think there'll be a possible Indian retaliation to these tariffs? And also, what do you think of the relationship between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to be after this announcement? Obviously, the two were very close. Donald Trump reiterated that India is a great friend to the United States, however, then went on to impose this 25% tariff on it. How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, I think most part of the economics of America is ruled directly or indirectly by Indians. Indians not only have very prominent positions in the White House, but Indians also have very prominent positions in America, whether it is medical sector, business sector, or tech sector. So I really don't think President Trump can afford to spoil relations between India and America. As far as calling India a friend, every time he makes a bitter announcement about India, he makes sure that he quotes it with a sugar, that India is a great friend, but this is what I'm going to do. I really don't think, it is going to spoil India-America relationship. This is more of an arm-twisting tactic. And we should not forget, Thomas, that this is not the end of the world, making an announcement of 25%, because the FTA talks are still under progress. There is a meeting scheduled for last week of August, where something may come out and this will be taken back. So friendship of President Modi and President Trump remains. I will make a very bold statement on your channel that for the fact that India needs America, I think America needs India more than India needs America. India has got a very strategic geographical position in the globe. I think it is the second biggest Asian giant, and it has not got very good terms with China. I don't think President Trump can afford to spoil terms with India as well. Well, the deal with China and America is already in the limbo. I spoke to your channel earlier in the day that it is because of the structure of the economy, and I think every country has got a right to preserve the structure of its economy. How can we allow agriculture and dairy in India when half of our population is dependent on agriculture? I think President Trump will have to understand and respect the sovereignty and the structure of economy. I'm sure Prime Minister Modi, with his magnificent presence, he's got a larger than life presence. I'm sure he's going to prevail at the end of the day.
Yes, Dr. Sharad Kohli, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Pleasure having you on. Now we move